Welcome to Bennett's Bike Social. In this video, we're looking at getting back to riding. Top tips for you and your motorcycle. You may have had a gap in riding due to an injury, winter break, or due to the current COVID pandemic. But we're going to give you a checklist of what to check for your motorcycle and for you before you embark on your first journey. First thing we're going to check is petrol. Obviously you're going to need petrol in the tank if you want your bike to start. Hopefully you brimmed your tank before you stored the bike, but if you didn't and you're unsure, there's obviously two ways to check to see if you've got fuel. One is a physical check, give it a tap, see how much fuel's in it, open the cap up, have a listen. There's not much fuel in that one. And if you're lucky, like I have on the Africa Twin, there's obviously a fuel gauge. Next on our checklist is the oil. Slightly unusual on Honda's Africa Twin in that we have a dipstick like a car rather than a sight glass. So this is the dipstick on the left. This is where you actually fill the oil with the oil cap. Most motorcycles will have a clear glass window which lets you see the oil level. Make sure the bike is upright. If you haven't got a center stand or a paddock stand, I've just put the bike on a little wooden chock to get the bike upright. If you're slightly nervous about this, ask somebody to help you along to make sure the bike is fully upright before you check the oil level. In your manual, it'll show you what the level should be. And if you require more oil, open the cap up and add some more oil. If you've got a dipstick like we have on the Africa Twin, make sure you're using a clean cloth, some gloves, and make sure this area is clean because we don't want any dirt or crud to go inside the engine. We've checked the petrol, we've checked the oil. Now it's important to check the water and the coolant. Obviously we're running antifreeze in Honda's Africa Twin, so it won't have frozen over winter. We need to check the hoses, make sure they're fine, make sure the clips are good, make sure that the level is good also. If you've got a race bike or a track day bike, you won't have run antifreeze in that. So hopefully you will have drained the water out before the cold season set in. If you've got an air-cooled bike, obviously you haven't got a radiator, so don't spend hours walking around looking for coolant. Next we're going to check the chain, obviously only if you've got a chain driven bike. What we're going to check is the quality of the chain, we're going to check the tension, do that in several spots, have a visual check of the links, make sure there's no tight spots, and then we need to give the chain a lube, make sure it's all clean. As you can tell, winter has taken its toll a little bit and I did go off-road riding yesterday. So let's get this chain cleaned up and give it a lube. Next on the checklist is going to be electrics. Most modern bikes, you're really not going to have an issue, but it's worth just double checking before you go for your ride. So, switch on. We're going to check the obvious, like indicators. Check that the horn is working, lights, brake lights. Don't forget the back pedal. We all seem to be up and running. Final check. Just give it a start up, make sure all the lights go out on the dash and make sure it's running. Yep, we're all good. Next on the checklist is going to be tyres. I've recently replaced the tyres on my Africa Twin for the AX41 Bridgestones, more off-road biased. So I know the tread is in good condition. In terms of pressures, I am running 36 psi front and rear. And off-road, I dropped them down to around 25 front and rear. These tyres are exceptional off-road and on-road. Whilst you're checking your PSI, or if you want to use bar, it's entirely up to you. Your recommended pressures will be in your manual. If you don't have that, contact your local dealer. Also check the depth. If you're getting to 1 mil, which is the minimum limit, you're going to think about replacing them. There's no point starting off with a tyre that you need replacing shortly. The next thing we're going to check, and the final check, is your brakes. Make sure they're not stuck on or binding, and then give them a visual check. Obviously make sure they work, but make sure the discs are in good condition and they're not warped. Spin the front wheel. Have a visual check of your brake pads. Make sure there's plenty of meat on the pads. Check the brake lines, make sure there's no leakage or they're cracked. Make sure everything is in good condition, and don't forget to check your brake fluid level. Obviously, don't forget the rear of your bike. Do the same visual check round, worthwhile doing whilst you got the bike on a paddock stand whilst you was doing your chain. If you've had a long layoff from two wheels, this might be due to injury, or you took a break over winter, or due to the COVID pandemic, then it's going to take you a while to develop your sixth sense, the way you could see things before. When you're riding a bike all the time, you kind of develop this second nature. You know when cars are going to pull out, you anticipate diesel or tractor spills, you can read the road better, you just understand what's happening, it comes more natural. If you've not been riding a bike for a while, that'll drop, and you've got to build that back up. Don't go flat out expecting everything to be the same. Equally, the roads around where you ride may have changed. You maybe not commuted on the same commute for 4 to 5 months and somebody's put in a mini roundabout. It's going to be a bit of a surprise when you find that. Equally, corners will have changed, trees may have been cut down, buildings may have gone up. So don't just expect that when you go over that crest that it's always flat out and empty and open. Somebody may have built a few houses at the other side and there could be a car pulling out. Just take it steady, build back up and get back to that sixth sense. You'll have forgot about those little things, like you'll have forgotten that you need to wear glasses. You'll have forgotten your contactless payment or maybe your waterproofs. So get your kit all laid out and get prepared for your first ride. Things that were second nature beforehand won't be second nature now. When we're talking about kit, you may have put on a bit of weight. So just try your kit on first. I've had a scenario where I've tried to put on some summer kit and I put too much weight on over Christmas and it didn't quite fit right. So when you're leaving the house, don't forget your wallet, don't forget your glasses, don't forget your contactless payment. Check your crash helmet for earplugs. If you've got old used earplugs in there, they've probably developed their own language by now. So get rid of those and replace them. It's all those little things that you may have forgotten about, again, which was your sixth sense. So get back to making a bit of a checklist and taking it steady. Finally, if you're feeling nervous or anxious and you're not too sure, simply don't do it. There'll be another day and you can go ride your bike then. Again, don't embark on a mammoth journey first time out and don't go flat out. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe. If you've got any questions, we'll try and answer them below. Our resident expert, John Milbank, has looked at budget crash helmets versus top-of-the-range crash helmets many times before. And he's really good at that. The last technical aspect we're going to look at is brakes. Obviously, check that your brakes actually work and they're not binding. Just on a point on earplugs, just check your crash helmet. Make sure you've not got any used earplugs in there. Use new earplugs if you're using reusable. Just enjoy motorcycling, take it steady, ride a familiar route, and we'll see you again though.